Sê Bartu, thank you. Dit gaan my spaar. Is baie welkom. Is lekker om almal saam met ons terug te hê en ek sien dis 'n kettingkie aan die regterkant. Hy's dalk so 'n bietjie aan die verkeerde kant opgesit, maar ons gaan nou. Hier is die tafeltjies in die middel. Alraai, so die gehoor shifty vir sekere funksies. Party aande met die ouens is ons die kant en so aan. Maar as jy nie kan sien daar waar hy is nie, skuif maar nader. Dis baie plekke oop hier so in die middel. En maak seker jy kan naby die skerm kom. Soos julle kan sien in die oggende is die goed raak baie op die skerm. En dis deel van die plan, dis deel van 'n strategie. So maak seker jy sit naby genoeg dat jy dit goed kan sien op die skerm en dit kan volg. Goed, welkom terug. Is lekker om saam met julle te wees. Ek vertrou jy het 'n goeie middag gehad, lekker gerus en so die bene voet in die lug kon gewees het. Ons het 'n goeie oggend gehad. Wel, ek en Ed. Maar goed, kom ons praat oor iets anders. Ons het I just said we had a good morning with you and nobody responded. So give them everything you have tonight. Yeah, let's go to 9. Okay, so Ed, welcome back. It's good to have you here. We spent the afternoon together next to the tennis courts and got a bit of a tan. And so it was good. Anyway, so Ed is going to do tonight's session, a leadership session. Welcome back for all the guys. It's part of the leadership program. Yeah, if you want to join the leadership program, please feel free to come and see me and join us. And yeah, Ed, we're not going to worship tonight. And I'm going to pray, but we're not going to worship tonight. And so let's just close our eyes and then I'm going to give over to Ed. Father, thank you. Thank you for counting us worthy and valuable enough to impart and deposit truth into our lives. We praise you for that. Thank you that you value us enough that you gave your son. And you didn't just leave us after you gave your son. You didn't only save us, but you are empowering us for impact, to partake in the establishment of your kingdom. We praise you for that. What a privilege. And thank you for giving us the ability to manage and to lead ourselves in order that we will be able to lead other people. Thank you for that. Thank you for tonight. Bless us tonight. Empower us. And we praise you for the session. Amen. Hey, thank you. You're so welcome. You've got a mic. And let's give Ada a hand.
All right.
Enjoy.
Thank you. Well, I'm honored to be back with you. This is so much fun. We had a good time this morning, huh? You guys, I wish you could have seen you from where I was. You guys are like, dude, I found Nemo. You know, you found Nemo and all that type of stuff. So it was so good, and that message is interesting in so many ways. And you know, the one thing I want you to see the most is that, you know, especially with woke culture and all this, they think it's new, but it happened. The same thing happened 3,000 years ago in Babylon. So there's nothing new under the sun. This is just old recycled flesh, and calling it new. It's just branding it new. Put a new little shiny look on it, you know, and rebrand it as new. It's the devil, still the devil. Hello? And so forth. So I'm really excited, especially with leaders here, and as this is one thing that is so necessary in church. And we have evangelism, we have the catching fish, and it's great to catch fish. How many would agree we call that catching fish and evangelism and getting fish caught? But you ever watch those commercial boats? You know, they pull up the big tuna fish, you know, and all that. But what if they caught all those fish but didn't clean them? It's a wasted harvest. And so really in the process of life, I'm going to show you a scripture here in a second. There's fish catchers and fish and net menders, or fish cleaners. And discipleship is kind of cleaning the fish. It's getting character issues sorted out. It's getting them well enough to function and so forth. And so I hear a lot about discipleship. I was a pastor. We had a pretty sizable church. And, you know, there was one group there was always the group in our church. We had too many disciplers. And, you know, we had all these fish cleaners, but no fish to clean. Are you with me? So what do those guys do? They start cleaning one another. That's called a church split. Are you with me? And a fish cleaner, disciplers are meant to disciple. Are you with me? If there's nobody to disciple, they're going to disciple the next disciple. And then that's like the Jehovah's Witness sharing with the Mormon. You know, it's just going to be weird. Okay, sorry about that. We used to do that at our house. We had some Mormons across the street, and so the Jehovah's Witnesses would come and knock at our house. I said, well, you know, I don't know, but there's a really good candidate across the street. Sorry, God, forgive me, and all that type of stuff. So that's absolutely true. We did that. And I figure, you know, they can argue doctrine. I'm not going to argue doctrine with them, you know. And what they want is they're looking for a fight. You know, you want to fight, you know. And I don't want to fight. Go fight with it. Never mind. But, oh, listen, before we started, I just wanted to, excuse me there, my friend. You know, I want to tell a story. You know, there's a sure way to make sure your pastor will come if you need him. Sure way. I'd like to read this story. Yeah, if you would, that'd be fine. Thanks. This guy looks like he's capable of handling the table here. Thank you, sir. But there's a sure way of making sure that your pastor will always find you. And I'm going to give you the secret tonight. It's going to be worth your tithe today, okay? It's going to be worth your tithe. Okay, there were two men shipwrecked on an island. One started screaming and yelling, we're going to die, we're going to die. There's no food, there's no water, we're going to die. The second man was propped up against the palm tree, so calm it drove the first man crazy. You don't understand, we're going to die. The second man replied, you don't understand, I make $100,000 a week. The first man looked at him quite dumbfounded and asked, what difference does that make? We're on an island. There's no food, there's no water. We're going to die. We're going to die. The second man answered, you don't get it. I make $100,000 a week, and I tithe on that $100,000 a week. My pastor will find me. Okay. There you go. That you can always get Neville to, even if you're out there in the bush, you know. I thought I'd put in a little advertisement. I'd throw it out there for $100,000 a week tithe. Somebody out there, okay, respond. Okay, so, and also I like to talk about experts, guys like me, quote unquote experts. And let's see if I can find the one I want to share with you. Here, let's see. Excuse me. Oh, I like this one. Once upon a time, there was a sheep herder tending his sheep at the edge of a country road in rural South Africa. A brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee screeched up to a halt next to him. The driver, a young man dressed in a Barani suit, Cerruti shoes, Ray-Ban glasses, a jovial Swiss wristwatch, and a BHS tie, jumped out and asked the herder, if I guess how many sheep you have, will you give me one of them? The herder looked at the young man and then looked at the sprawling herd of grazing sheep and said, okay. The young man parked his SUV, connected his notebook and wireless modem, entered a NASA site, scanned the ground using satellite imagery and a GPS, opened a database with 60 Excel tables filled with algorithms, and then printed out a 150-page report on his high-tech mini printer. He turned to the herder and said, you have exactly 1,586 sheep here. The herder answered, well, say, you're right. Pick out a sheep. The young man took one of the animals and put it in the back of his vehicle. As he was preparing to drive away, the herder looked at him and asked, now, if I guess your profession, will you pay me back in kind? The young man answered, sure. The herder said immediately, you are a consultant. Exactly. How did you know? Asked the young man. Very simple, replied the herder. First, you came here without being invited. Secondly, you charged me to tell me a fee for something I already knew. And thirdly, you don't understand anything about my business, and I really like to have my dog back. I like that one, and you can always get a rise, too, out of men and women ones, okay? So I'd like to do one men one, and one women one. This is for you gals right here, all right? A couple had been married 40 years, and both had celebrated their 60th birthdays. During the celebration, a fairy appeared and said because they had been such a loving couple all those years, she would give them both one wish. The wife wanted to travel around the world. The fairy waved her wand, and boom, she had tickets in her hand. Next, it was the husband's turn. He paused for a moment and then said shyly, well, I'd like to have a woman 30 years younger than me. The fairy picked up her wand, and boom, he was 90 years old. And all the women said, amen. Okay, get that guy. Now we got to have equal play here. My wife was making a breakfast of fried eggs for her husband. Suddenly her husband, or a wife, was making a breakfast of fried eggs for her husband. Suddenly her husband burst in the kitchen. Careful, he said, careful. Put in some more butter. Oh my God, you're cooking too many at once. Too many, turn them now. We need more butter. Oh my God, where are we going to get more butter? They're going to stick. Careful. I said careful. You never listen to me when you're cooking. Never turn them. Hurry up. Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? Don't forget to salt them. You know you always forget to salt them. Use the salt that you salt. The wife stared at him. What in the world is wrong with you? You'd think I don't know how to fry a couple of eggs? The husband calmly replied, I wanted to show you what it feels like when I'm driving. There's payback, okay? There's payback. I'll quit here while I'm ahead and while everybody's still going. All right. Well, I call this message the guide by their side, how learners become leaders. And so I want to talk about the subject tonight of discipleship. We'll do a little redefining, a little refining, and really, I hope, equip you a little bit. In fact, this template I'm going to give you is, I think, really a good one. I think most of you will want a copy of it. I'll make sure that I get this Word doc to Pastor Neville, and then we'll go forth. But check this out. Just come on the journey with me, and let's start out. And the way I like to start out is, well, let me just turn to the first one. Follow me, and I will make you become fishers of men. Mark 1:17. So, guys, there's two types of people. There's the evangelism, catching the fish, and then there's what the Bible calls net menders, all right, who making sure the fish don't get away once they're caught and cleaned and processed, all right? And he was going along by the Sea of Galilee. He saw Simon and Andrew, brothers of Simon, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. Follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. And they were doing that in the literal sense. And so this is it's a type of evangelism, the bringing in, making the lost found. And I believe a church should be a lost and found department. There should be a place in church where the lost can come in, and a place also where the found can be discipled. Reach the lost, disciple the found, release the ready. Reach the lost, disciple the lost, reach the lost, disciple the found, release the ready. And that's how the wheel of God goes. After you release the ready, they go out and reach the lost, disciple the found, release the led, and it just kind of goes like this. And then this other group, these are the disciple guys, and I think Jesus said, go out and disciple the nations, So there's a real need for discipleship. In other words, to develop them once they're saved, once they're caught. And going a little further, he saw James, the son of Zebedee, and his son John, his brother, who were also mending the nets. They're the disciples. They're the net menders. They're the ones that make sure the fish don't get out, and that we're efficient and effective, if I can use those words. So very interesting thing. The first thing you see is this whole thing of evangelism and discipleship right there in Mark. And what I want to do is tonight, let's look at net mending. I want to focus here on discipleship. Why? Because mentors are bridges to tomorrow. All right? Mentoring is how learners become leaders. Whatever you want to call it, discipleship, fathering, passing the baton, mentoring, coaching, teaching, empowering, or equipping, it settles the question of who's going to carry on after you're carried off. Hello? It settles the question of transgenerational sustainability, and that the church would go on through the generations and keep going and going and going. And so discipleship is kind of that quality program that takes that product and that beginning product and turns it into a finished product called a Christian. And you move from, if you notice right now, there's one group of people in the church. We have, I call them the Christ in you. You know, Christ in you, that verse, Christ in you, the hope of glory. You know, Christ is in me. They're bragging. Christ is in me. I'm so powerful. Christ is in me. Notice the me. And what they like, they're using Jesus as a means to their own end and so forth. And so you have that whole type of thing that appeals to the me in people. But you understand, this process starts there, Christ in you. But discipleship moves people from Christ in me to me in Christ. Think of that. For me, your life is hidden in Christ. As a matter of fact, they aren't supposed to see you. They're supposed to see Christ in you. But the Christ in me people are like, look at my spiritual badge of honor. I just cast out 4 demons. Like, here's the notches of my belt. And I think we need, and what is that? That's a lack of discipleship. You see, there's 4 stages of Christianity. This is never popular to preach, so I don't preach it very much. They're liable to throw tomatoes at you, all right, or potatoes, whatever. We're out here in the farm country, all right. But there's 4 stages of Christianity. There's the first stage is give me. You know, that's where Santa Claus is coming to town, and God is Santa Claus. And, you know, when I pray for him, he gives me something, and look what he's given me, and give me. And everything is about give me what I want. So there's a gimme stage. Now, when you're a little baby, that's what does the father going to do if you have a little baby? He's going to give you. He's going to feed you. Because why? You're a little baby. Are you with me? You're pretty helpless. And so God allows us to have us that gimme stage for a while. But then the next stage is we move from gimme to use me. That's where people are like, oh, yeah, Christ in me, you know, and he used me to preach, or he used me to cast out a demon, or he used me to, you know, whatever the thing is. That's the use me. Give me, use me. And the use me stage, a lot of people stop at the use me stage. But the problem is they don't know what the next stage is, because it doesn't stop at the use me stage. It stops at 2 stages later. So it moves from give me to use me, and then all of a sudden we have a little Jabbok Forge incident where you wrestle with God, and that's called break me. All right? So give me, use me, break me, and the last stage is make me. That's where you've moved in your life from Christ in me to me in Christ. And that's the process of discipleship. You know, they never preach that one because it kind of scares people off. God's really tricky on that. You know, salvation is free. Discipleship costs a bit. Hello? So it is very interesting the way God does this. And so, guys, is the leadership in this church, our job is kind of to, you know, not only do the function of the church, but wouldn't it be great if everybody here had somebody that, as long as it was a God deal, that somebody that they were putting their lives into, imparting their lives to. I mean, because I'm telling you what, transformation doesn't happen up here so much, or in some teaching session. Transformation happens in 2 areas, coaching and mentoring. That's where you're involved in their life. That's where it becomes personal, and you do a little deep diving and really help people. Now, I believe in all of these. I believe that, well, Jesus taught the 5,000. I call that case presenting. So, and that's all part of discipleship. I think you can learn things at church services and so forth. In fact, our church is, CCV, in Arizona, we've got 14 campuses or whatever it is. I say we because we just kind of go there. I can't get real involved because I'm gone all the time. But they've got about 40,000 people and 13 campuses, and it's the third biggest church in America. And but they're, how do you say it? They say their deal is when you come to their gatherings, you're coming to learn. And I think that's fair. You're not coming to fellowship one another, experience koinonia. You're coming to worship and to learn. It's a learning community. I think that's fair. But then they have other things, of which, you see a lot of within churches. You might have 100 people gathered together, like tonight. And this is what I would call, how do you say it? This is Jesus teaching the 70. So in that one, it's a learning. It's a case presenting. Jesus is case presenting. And the guys I did this morning a little case presenting, in what we're talking about. So that's case presenting. And then we have the smaller sessions like this where it's teaching. One-way communication, basically one-way communication. I hope I'm speaking to you and not at you. All right? Because that's why I like to be down here, because I want to be, I believe in the relationship thing, and there's a vibe and all that. It's not just me speaking. Right now I'm imparting my life to you too. And Christ is imparting his life to you, and that's so cool. And I just get to have an out-of-body experience and watch what's going on, and I'm going, who is that guy talking to all these people right now? I don't even recognize that guy. You see, because I'm just a thin man trying to get to heaven. So it really is kind of fun when you realize that, not I, but Christ. It's not I, but Christ. And so, guys, so you have the 5,000 model where Jesus taught, it's a learning type of situation, the teaching type of situation, like right now. And the reason I did this message very honestly is when I go to different churches, it come to our discipleship meeting tonight, And I always like to stick my nose into those and look at it. And what is some guy up here who's one-way communication and lecturing and trying to communicate a message or whatever. Now, I'd say that's teaching, but I don't think that's discipling. Hello? Because discipleship is a little bit more two-way than one way. I believe that teaching, like right now, can be part of your discipleship process, just like case presenting. But I want to take us into the last two steps, into coaching and mentoring. Because I think that's where life really happens. Koinonia happens there. The life of God flows to and through one another and all that. Maybe it's a cell group or a home group or something like that. But that's where we get this two-way thing going on. It's koinonia. It's the Holy Spirit connection between people, and wisdom's imparted, and we can pray for one, all that kind of stuff. I believe it's part of discipleship. And the last one, I believe, is this thing called mentoring. Mentoring is deep diving. And I would say it this way. The 5,000 is, that's kind of case presenting. The 70, when Jesus taught the 70, that's teaching. When Jesus was dealing with his 12 disciples, that's called coaching. And the three biggies, James and John, and I'm sure I forget whoever it was, Peter. Poor Peter, he gets forgotten sometimes. But that's mentoring. And that mentoring, that's a crucial level. Now, I know there's some people. Is the rugby guy here? Is the rugby guy here, or whatever you were telling me about? Or Andrew. What? Hendrick. Okay, Hendrick. All right.
No. You're talking about the referee.
Okay, all right. The referee. Okay, sorry. I was wanting to meet the referee tonight. But in any event, I want to say it this way. Coaching is like the coach of the team, and he knows kind of everybody on the team, maybe not by name, but he doesn't know their kids or their wife's names or anything like that. So that's kind of coaching strategy and coaching type of thing. But I'll tell you, the real key of the team is the guy that's coaching number 1, 2, and 3. In other words, there's a coach designed for those 3 guys, or the halfbacks, or I'm trying to think of all the different names in rugby, okay? But the guys on the outside that run fast, and those types of guys, whatever they're called. And there'll be a coach for those guys. There'll be somebody, and that guy, he knows their strengths, he knows their weaknesses, he knows their wives' names, he knows their kids' names, he knows their tendencies when they were in college. He knows everything about them, and he's there to coach them in this area, maybe the 1, 2, 3 guys, and he's just involved in them directly. That's called mentoring. And that's where I think everything is won. All right, so I'm sorry, this is my little introduction to this. So it settles the question of transgenerational sustainability. Now, I'm going to take you to America's team for a second in the last 2 Olympics in the 100-meter run, the 100-yard relay. It's interesting to me, the last 2 Olympics, America had the fastest runners, but every time they missed on the baton, handing the baton off, and lost the Olympics, the last 2 Olympics, because they didn't know how to hand off the baton. And I think if we're going to be everything that God wants us to be, the tremendous capacity in this church, we got to increase our competency on this whole thing of passing the baton, of taking the raw material of a worldling that just got saved and turn them into a fully devoted follower of Jesus Christ. And boy, if we can start getting into that zone, watch out. We're going to have a bunch of Christians running around here. Not just people who are saved, but I mean Christians. Christians, okay. I like that word Christian. It means a little Christ. We're going to have a bunch of mini Christs running around here. All right. I love Pentecost Day because on Pentecost Day, one Jesus became 120 Jesuses. Hello? Isn't that what happened? They were on fire, but they didn't burn. I just think that's so. It's almost like that burning bush. We had all those burning bushes running around. Okay. In any event. Just thinking, so this is just some of my rhetoric. I mean, America, best runners, but everybody is very individualistic, and nobody knows how to team play, and nobody could pass the baton, and they lost it the last 2 Olympics in a row. And that's why churches become one generational, is because they don't know how to pass the baton. That's how businesses become one-dimensional, because they don't know how to pass the baton. So let's take a look at this, guys. Did you enjoy my little introduction there? And do I have your attention? All right, 5 generations of passing the baton. I love this verse. The things which you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust these to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. So look at these 5 generations. Jesus taught Paul. Paul taught Timothy. Timothy taught faithful men taught others. 5 generations in one verse. What happened? They learned how to pass the baton. You know this verse, 2 Timothy 2:2. And so this is kind of like the model that I'd like to get us thinking about a little bit. Now, how learners become leaders. I just went through this 4 ways of engaging the discipleship process. I believe that case presenting is important as part of discipleship. Teaching, seminars, and conferences, 70, coaching. But also, I think we need mentoring. In fact, you just experienced this, didn't you, Neville? And when you went to Colorado Springs and that experience that you had there, deep diving stuff on this level. And mentors were coming up to you, and they were saying, all kinds of interesting things. So Just remember this whole idea, and that's just the way Jesus did it. So he's kind of our example on that. So let's take a look. Some potential discipleship issues. Which are you, the sage on the stage or the guide by their side? Shift from owning slaves to raising, releasing sons and daughters. Remember, a slave doesn't know what's going on in the family. He's just a hireling, all right? And I think this discipleship process moves people from, how do you say it, the sage on the stage type of guy isn't going to pass that. He's going to have people there and probably be called, the problem is, it's what's called as utilitarianism. It's only valuing people for what they do rather than who they are. And so these guys will be generally utilitarians, whereas the guide by their side in this process, and I understand the pastor can't be with everybody, that's why we have to have people doing it too, all right? Let's not kill the nice pastor, all right? So look at this, releasing sons and daughters, and I think this is very, very important. By the time a man realizes that maybe his father was right, he usually has a son who thinks he's wrong. I've noticed that one. The problem with individual self-reliance, and the sage on the stage guys, is that it picks up confidence as it goes along. It becomes even more individualized, all right? At the heart of the problem is the problem of man's heart. And that's why we need to help people deal with basic heart issues and so forth. Sometimes you have to say what you mean, but that doesn't give you the right to be mean when you say it. You can't lead people if you need people to feel good about yourself. I think many pastors fall into this. These are more, because they're more people persons and so forth, if they're like in the traditional pastor, they need people to feel good about themselves. And so if you need people, it doesn't make you a very good leader. So there's a difference between that leading and so forth. And I said this the other night, even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. And edging God out, ego, edging God out, or exalting God only. That ego can be used for those different things. So let's go on with here. True terror is to wake up one morning and discover that your high school class is running the country. Your matric class, what do you call it? Matriculate, okay. Realize that those guys are running you're in trouble. That's true terror, all right? An honorary degree is like the curl in the tail of a pig. It follows the main part of the animal, is highly ornamental, and in no way does it improve the quality of the ham. Okay, I just thought I'd throw that out there, okay? Teaching and coaching is no substitute for mentoring, all right? And I really mean that. Teaching, coaching is no substitute for mentoring. Mentoring is the deep diving that gets down to people's hearts and releases them to be who they are in order for them to fulfill their purpose, call, vision, or destiny. Look at this, the Corinthian climate. What caused the Corinthian climate, all that mess in the church with all those messes? It was all teachers, no fathers. It says you have countless teachers coming here, and every one of them is just teaching you like I'm teaching right now, but nobody's taking it any deeper than that, all right? So that's what you have. You'll see a lot of this type of countless teachers, no fathers or mentors. That's the Corinthian climate. The loss of father in the church. A father is called to be kind, but not always nice. David wouldn't or couldn't connect or correct his sons. The sons of church movements and denominations without proper fathering or discipleship. Here's what David's produced. Absalom, he was a covenant breaker. Adonijah, a self-promoter. Anan, a pervert, having sex with his sister. Solomon, the love of excess and a self-indulger. And this is a guy with a heart after God, but didn't know how to raise his children. And you see this a lot too in churches and so forth. The sage on the stage type of idea. He's too busy for everybody. He just expects everybody to somehow get it and just sit in that chair for the next 10 years until your soul gets under control. Hello? And then when it's not done in 10 years, then spend 10 more years. And in the meantime, we're wasting all this potential of people. All right, so Solomon, love of excess and self-indulgence. That's kind of a scary thing, the loss of fathering in the church. Mentors are bridges to tomorrow. You can be better than others without mentoring, but you can never be your best without mentoring. And that's so true. I mean, you might be a natural athlete, but guess what? You'll get so far, and there will be some point where you need a coach to be your best. I promise you. A horse or a mule, which we're going to be a horse or mule. Now, a horse reproduces, a mule doesn't reproduce. One generation. Are you with me? So let's make sure that we're transgenerational. An example of this is the YMCA or the YWCA or the Salvation Army. Now, the YWCA, at least in America, is basically a feminist organization now. It's no longer the Young Christian Women's Association. It's turned into a feminist organization. And why is that? Because they didn't know how to pass the baton. And so it lost its vision, it lost its purpose, and got taken over by other people who gladly took over the reins of it. We know, we started our church, we were in a YWCA building, and we protested an abortion clinic. You know, we went out and as a church, this was kind of a long time ago, and you did those things, or what, protested abortion clinic. And I mean, they called me up. I mean, it went right from Planned Parenthood to the gal running the YWCA, and we were kicked out of that place the next day. So see, they've lost this. And what does it stand for? I almost was tempted to say, what is your name of your organization? Young Women's Christian Association. So see, they lost it. They became a mule because they didn't know they couldn't reproduce. Where the Salvation Army, pretty much anywhere in the world right now, it's learned how to pass the baton, so it still is a place where you can find Jesus. Hello? It's very interesting. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, okay, transgenerational. You can't be successful until you have a successor. Why? Genesis says we're to have a perpetual harvest, not just a one-generation church or, some ego-driven guy, up there or whatever, who's a hot shot, but a perpetual harvest. Sage on the stage is for today. The guide by their side is for tomorrow. So we have a lot of sage on the stage, pastors, bless their heart. They're after God. They're doing the best they can. The problem is they're going to be one generational because you can't lead people if you need people. So let's not do that. And I know Neville's not that guy, and we know how that works. But look at this, sage on the stage for today. But the guide on the side is the one that's for tomorrow, ensures transgenerational sustainability. Now, something to consider, Judas had the best pastor, best leader, best advisor, best counselor, best disciple builder, yet he failed. The problem may not be the leadership or the church you go to. If your attitude or character doesn't change or your heart doesn't transform, you will always be the same. And you've all seen that. Okay, you're all leaders and know how that one works. So I'm just kind of setting you up here for some things that are going to be interesting. Effective discipleship, I believe, is to mother first and then you father second. You mother first because that's what they need. They're brand new Christians. And then after they get to a certain point, then the father anointing can kick in and all that type of stuff. Learn to carefront, not confront, carefront spiritual children. And look at this. This is Paul talking about the Thessalonians. Look what he says. But we prove to be gentle among you as a nursing mother tenderly cherishes is the word, for her own children. Having thus a fond affection for you, we were well pleased to impart to you not only the gospel of God, but also our very own lives, our souls. We were willing to spend time with you and do a little deep diving because you had become very dear to us. And I think this part of the discipleship process when people are brand new and they're just getting cleaned up and stuff like that. I don't think we need to, have them go to the cross quite yet. Okay? Do the tough stuff quite yet and punish them and all this type of stuff. So Paul started with the Thessalonian church in the mother mode. But then he didn't leave them in the mother mode. He brought them into the both mother and father mode. Then the father kind of comes in. You are witness, and so are God, how devoutly and uprightly and blamelessly we behave towards you believers, just as you know how we were exhorting and encouraging, imploring each one of you as a father would his own children. I like that. Exhorting and encouraging and imploring. And today at the tennis game, every time Jenny, would get a point, we were like, yeah, and Jenny was over there looking at us, going, this feels so good, and it's just cute how she does that. And, but that's that father, and man, she's just be, encouraging the children. They do a good job. Give them a compliment, exhort them, encouraging, all that type of stuff, so that you may walk in a manner. What is a father there for? To make sure that you walk, and a mother, starting with mother and father, walk in a manner worthy of God who calls you into his own kingdom and glory. That's the goal. So it's interesting. It's just how in real life, the first 13 years or up to puberty, the mother's kind of the main primary character of a family or whatever, the nurturing part, all of those types of things. But see, mothers nurture and take care of issues like self-image issues and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of their job. But about 13, then all of a sudden, mothers nurture, fathers activate destiny. They set up for destiny. What are you going to be when you grow up? And let's help you to be that. And let's do all that. So the same discipleship process is the same kind of way or whatever. And then the father in many ways becomes, whether it's a guy or a girl, it becomes like, what are you going to be when you grow up? Let's see. You have a purpose. One is for, how do I want to say it? One is for identity. The mother's for identity. The father's for purpose. You get them together, you have a good IP address, identity purpose address. Okay? So this is kind of the same idea in a real family. Now, mentoring, find someone to carry on after you're carried off. My aim is that when my hands will work no longer, that the works of my hands will still continue to keep on working. Does that make sense? So guys, this is an important issue, and I think I'm about ready to present to you a different way of discipling, still the same process, but I think a way that makes much more sense and I think is much more efficient and effective. And so I'm setting you up. This is kind of all like the salad. We're getting ready for the Buddha-kost, okay? We're getting ready for the Buddha-vost, okay? All right, the braai. Okay, I love that. Okay, so one of the best examples of a two-way leader-learner relationship is Paul and Timothy. Both parties were motivated and engaged. Now listen to the statement, you can be the best mentor ever, but if the one you're mentoring is not engaged, nothing happens. You might be the most motivated learner in the world, but if your mentor is not engaged or not willing or doesn't have time, you will be adversely affected. So right away we see the discipleship is we got to have two ways. I don't want, we'll use hand signals here. It's got to be faced like this. If many times a pastor will chase somebody, he wants to disciple or whatever, but he's not engaged. So the pastor's turned to the person, but the person's turned this way. Hello? Other times you have, like I was early on in my life, there was a guy, Dr. Harvey Lifsey. I wanted him to mentor me so bad, and I chased him all over the world, And but he was like this, So, are you with me? And so all I could do, he could teach me, but he didn't disciple me. You with me? And so what we need is you know. It's like what happened in the garden, you know. God and Adam, mankind, womankind, peoplekind, humankind started this way. They were in relationship. And then man turned away from God. And then in a sense, God turned away from man, gave him the law and said, okay, you guys want to do it on your own? I'm going to send my law to be a tutor. Try and see if you can do it in the power of the flesh. Hello? And then, of course, man was still lost, and all of a sudden God turned to man through Jesus. And then hopefully the whole idea of discipleship is for man to turn to Jesus, and we're just like in the garden before the fall. Does that make sense? And so make sure that if you're going to invest your time in somebody, first of all, you're ready and willing, and secondly, that they're ready and willing. Then we have the start of an effective discipleship process. Does that make sense? I feel sorry for the coaches on sports teams and stuff like that. So many times it's like here they've spent all this money to get a really good mentor for number one. You know, number one's the big guy. Is that right? He's the scrum guy. He's in the, you know what I'm saying? You know, you're paying all this money to help number one, and number one says, I can do it myself. I'd rather do it my way. Hello? So number one knocks his head into the ground for a couple years and then finally decides, well, maybe now we have a coachable situation. Jesus was turned towards Judas, but Judas wasn't turned towards Jesus. Are you with me? Whereas Peter was like this. All right. So in the event, sorry for the little hand illustration, but it shows you what. You might be the most motivated learner, but if we don't have somebody that, to take care of them, you're in trouble. To Timothy, my true child in the faith, grace and mercy and peace to God and Father. So here's the deal. Paul was turned towards Timothy, and Timothy was turned towards Paul. And we had something to work with. Now, watch this. 10 Paul and Timothy mental protocols and self-talk perspectives. Now, guys, watch this very, very, very carefully, because this is a little bit different, all right? I was telling Neville that I did this at Lance Wallnow's Dream Conference with all these 30 high-power guys there, whatever. And this is what I came up with for them. Or God came up with through them, okay? Protocols and self-talk perspectives. Required for mentoring and passing the baton in church, in a business, in education, or family for transgenerational sustainability. Think of it. Jesus accessed his Father a lot. In fact, Jesus didn't do anything without hearing from the Father first, okay? So they had that kind of relationship going on too. So here we go. Now, let's see. Whoops, I missed one. Number one. Now, let's think of it this way. Paul, or the mentor's self-talk, this is the way what Paul ought to be thinking in his mind about himself. My desire to develop leaders with the intention of transitioning power and authority to them must be genuine. I must own it from the inside out. That's my little thing there, from the inside out. In other words, Paul's thinking to himself, listen, if this is going to be a valuable experience, I better make sure that I'm willing to invest the time and to actually do what I say I'm going to do. Transition power at some point. And authority must be genuine. I can't be doing it just because it's the latest fad. Are you with me? I got to own it. It's got to be on the inside of me, not the outside of me. Yes, I know I should do it intellectually. Listen, this one's got to move from the head to the heart to the feet. God opens the eyes of your mind, then he opens the eyes of your heart, and then you're ready. It's ready to go down the feet. This is knowledge. This is understanding. That's wisdom down there. Proper application of knowledge through understanding. So you got to own it. Now, Timothy towards Paul, what should Timothy be thinking to himself? Your disciple. The willingness of a leader or leaders to invest in learners like me is rare. I won't take it for granted, and I will be grateful. Now you see how the connection, the verbal, mental perspective here, the mind skin, if I can say it that way. You got to have new mind skin in order to have new wineskin. So let's create the new wineskin. This is the wineskin. If they're both thinking this way, then guess what? We're going to be probably pretty effective. Now, you could almost make this like something that you were willing to sign, or something you could sign, or are we agreed with this before you even go into the process? And that's why I want to make sure you have it so you guys could tweak it or do whatever you want with it. Number 2 is Paul's perspective, thinking about himself. I must understand leaders come in all shapes, types, shapes, and sizes. There is no perfect, superfragilistic, leadership style or personality. Okay? Isn't that true? I like the supercalifragilistic, leadership style or personality. That's Ed Delph all the way. That's the way I think. All right. So look at this. I understand leaders come in all shapes and sizes. There's no perfect style or personality. Leaders can be melancholy, they can be sanguine, they can be choleric, they can be phlegmatic. All right? Different personalities and all that. A leader is a leader. All right? So that's really important. Now, Timothy, the learner's self-talk, there's not a single successful leadership style, so I can be myself. I will be myself because everybody else is taken. Elisha's job was to be Elisha, not Elijah. Let me say that again. This is because there's a lot of, hello? Sometimes when we're being led by a person, we want to be them. No, the best this world can get is you being you with God all over you, with Elijah mentoring the Elisha, but doing it in Elisha's style and way. Everybody go, aha. Come on. 1, 2, 3. Aha. No, even more. Come on. 1, 2, 3. Aha. You know, hit the person's head on the next side of you. All right. So this is very interesting. All right. But this is just getting interesting. Number 3, Paul mentors self-talk. I will need a high pain threshold if I'm going to work with young leaders. Young leaders can be exhausting. Hello? You might as well go in knowing that, all right? Because it's like, can you imagine Jesus with Peter? That was exhausting. Are you with me? Open mouth, insert foot. Are you with me? Jesus is like, dude, do you get any better or is this it? You know, it's just like, are you with me? I will need a high pain threshold. Timothy's the learner's self-talk, I will make a lot of mistakes and I will say and do stupid things, so I will be humble and remain teachable. What happened? Now, let's think of this potential. If somebody actually thought that, oh, the potential is unlimited, baby. This is how you unleash not just capacity, being competent at discipleship. That's the way I want to say it. When you're competent at discipleship, you're unleashing their capacity, and you have God in them on display before the world. Christ in them. So here we go. Paul's mentors, Timothy's learners, self-talk. Next one. I will be pushed beyond my comfort zone in many areas of my life when I develop Timothy's. It may be disruptive to my current ministry and schedule. In other words, nothing's going to happen without sacrifice. Are you with me? Jesus had to be sacrificed for greater things to happen. Sometimes you have to descend in order to ascend. All right? So no pain, and the world wants life this way. No pain, no pain. But you and I both know it's no pain, no gain. All right? So Paul's mentor, I will be pushed on my comfort zone in many areas of my life. In other words, I may have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to meet the guy at, 1 wimpies. Where am I? Am I in wimpies? Do we have wimpies around? Okay, wimpies around here or whatever, and have some coffee and stuff like that. I may even have to get up early. That would be terrible. Are you with me? No, Jesus loves it. It's a sacrifice. Sacrifice releases spiritual power, and the greater the sacrifice, the greater the power. Interesting. Timothy's learned self-talk. Likely I will be in a hurry to lead, so I'll be patient. I will give time. I'll be right on time in the nick of time. I will trust the process of maturity. In other words, God's in control. I don't have to push when God's in control. I'll let God be God, and I'll just kind of follow in that, and we'll just go in this process. And I'm even going to trust God to let my mentor know when I'm ready to take that next step. Because you're going to think you're ready, most likely, after the second meeting together. Hello? So, in any event, very interesting thing. But number 5, self-talk. I will need to understand that by definition, these future leaders aren't fully developed. If you're expecting perfection in them before you disciple them, I have news for you. That's why you're discipling. It's called cleaning fish. That means there's still some stuff in there that needs to be pulled out. One time I did a message at our church. It was so great. I had these great big rainbow trout we caught up at our ranch, at the OW ranch, cattle ranch in Arizona. And we had these 2 trout ponds with all these big trout in them. And of course, we caught them and cleaned them. And what I did from the pulpit, I had this trout up there, and I didn't show the people that it was already cleaned, And then I had all this gack. You know what gack is? It's in red and yellow and white, and it's just string. You can string it, and kids play with it. And I had a big bunch of gack right up here. And so I was in there, and I said, come back. Oh, yeah, guys, we got to catch fish, and we got to clean them. And I'm going like this, pretending like I'm cleaning it, and I'm just going like this. And I had it all kind of set out in strings. And oh, man, oh, look at this. Look at all this stuff. We're cleaning them. And so I picked up a bunch of that junk and went, and boom, 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 boom. Went right out in the audience. I got in trouble for that. So some of that gack, it sticks to people, and it was in hair, ladies' hair and all. It was a dramatic situation, okay. You will need to understand by definition these future leaders aren't fully developed. Timothy, I'm not a finished product, so I will listen and what? Be open. I must assign them meaningful, important, and significant tasks. Why? Because it's important. It shows I trust them. I'm willing to give them a chance and see how they do. I will give them more to do than clean toilets. Hello? I mean, meaningful, significant. Now, don't get me wrong. Cleaning a toilet in certain instances could be very meaningful. Okay? But what I'm saying here is that I want to give them stuff that counts and matters, because that's the way you see how they do with responsibility. All right? Timothy, learner self-talk. The work given to me to do will be important, so I'll take it seriously. I'll earn the right to lead. So with this type, see all these things, guys, how it's working both ways? And what you're doing is you're connecting in the Spirit. You're connecting for a reason, for discipleship building, all right? Let's go on. I should be their guard wall, not the wall. Boy, I wish I could say that to a lot of pastors all over the world. I should be their guard wall. I'm there to protect them. I'm not going to be the wall and try and stop them. I'm going to be their guard wall. I will be a blessing, not a barrier. I will need to lift them out, then lift them up if they get into a problem. I call it lifting people out and then lifting people. I will need to lift them out and then lift them up. And that's when you have a two-way relationship. And so you're not only getting on them for the negative stuff, you're blessing them for the positive stuff. And you're like a mother and the father, just kind of working those two areas. My mentor is there to protect me from myself. so I'll be coachable and teachable. I need to be their cheerleader. I will encourage them. I will need an advocate, so I will need encouragement, so I'll be faithful. You see how this is working? I mean, that's what Jesus did with his guys. I am currently designing and planning the organization they will inherit. I'll give them a place at the table that is relevant to them and their generation. I believe that on every elder board or whatever, there ought to be some of these younger people there too, because someday it's going to be their organization, and they ought to be able to have input, not just a bunch of old, 70-year-old, 80-year-old guys living in another generation, but have some input also, young and old. The glory of a young man is the strength. They're in the strength time of their life. You're in the wisdom time of your life. Let's join wisdom and strength. And guess what? That we've got it. Now we've got generals and an army, and yet they feel like they've had a part in determining the church and where it's going to. My friend Mel Mullen did that in his church. His church was big. They had good money, they had everything, but Mel Mullen, the guy who said, I was born for this, I was telling you about this morning. He looked around, he had all this young staff trying to reach his generation. Hello? And the Lord spoke to him and said, dude, get a checkup from the neck up. Why would you do that? From now on, I want you to, I want to help them reach their generation. And from that point, he started a process where his son took over, and now they've tripled in size from when Mel had it. It was almost like, Joel Osteen's dad, John Osteen, got to a certain point and then just stopped there. And it was like they needed to go to the next step, and his son took him to that next step. I hope he's still doing good and all that, but I don't watch him. But in any event, the idea is that type of idea. And so in their church, he said, and he came in, and this is how he announced it. He talked to his elders first and all that. And then he came in the staff one day, and he says, today, I'm going to ask, he's very dramatic when he speaks. Today, this church will change forever. I can see him doing that. Today, you will not help me build a church to reach my generation. I'm here to help you build a church that will reach your generation. Hello? And that's what he did. Mel's just crazy enough to do that. And it was neat. It was just neat to see that. So I'm currently designing and planning an organization. All right. Timothy learner self-talk. I'm being given a unique opportunity, so I'll be respectful when I get a place at the table, in the decision-making table. All right? So I think it's, this is how you join the generations, and the church becomes transgenerational. Paul Menner's self-talk number 10. This is the last one. Some of you were probably wondering, is he going to do this for the rest of the night? I recognize that I will lose good men, maybe even the best men, if I don't do this. In other words, if you don't do it, you're going to lose good people that are go find a place to serve somewhere else. So they might as well be in your church. I recognize that I will lose good men, maybe even the best men, if I don't do this. Timothy learners, I will be in a better environment to learn and grow if I hang in there in this church, so I'll be loyal. Then I won't be a homeless child with an orphan spirit. What we have in the church today is heaps of people with orphan spirits. They grew up without a father. And they manifest it too. And so I'm on a eliminate the orphan spirit type of people, okay? There's nothing wrong with orphans. I love orphans, but let's not have it be a spiritual orphan spirit. You see what I'm saying? So guys, mentor roles can include, you can be a consultant, a cheerleader, a connector, a clarifier. And I think that's the most important one of all of these. Somebody who clarifies things for them and what's going on and what the walk is like. A challenger, you can challenge them when they're maybe going the wrong direction or to go up to the next level. The coach and a counselor. So that's kind of the roles that mentor roles can include. The mentor-mentee relationship, it's built on trust. It is longitudinal in that it matures and evolves over time. It's bidirectional, requires openness and investment from both participants. This is just kind of a review. It's imbalanced in that one participant generally has more experience, wisdom, or skills that are being passed on to another participant who desires to develop them. So it's imbalanced in that sense, where you have somebody that's been there, done that, got the T-shirt, in trying to help somebody who hasn't been there, done that, and got the T-shirt, if I can say it that way. So it's interesting. I got this material from a guy. He was the head of all the personnel department, IT guy of Microsoft. And he and I just did a Zoom thing for Pinnacle Forum together. His name's Carl. Great guy, Carl, E-H-L-A-N-D. And we just had a ball doing this together. And this was some of what he said, so I grabbed that. I thought that was really good. So look at this. A CFO asks the CEO, what happens if we invest and develop our people and then they leave us? CEO, what happens if we don't and they stay? Train people well enough so they can leave. Treat them well enough so they don't want to. That's Richard Branson. All right? I thought that was a pretty good statement. Some final thoughts. Are you enjoying this tonight? And it's just, I'm trying to expose you to kind of bring some depth. We all know the concept, but it's fuzzy. And what I want to do is clarify it tonight. Today's world, you've heard me say it several times, clarity is a rarity. And so what I'm trying to do is clarify this issue and what will mean and what the investment is and what the expectations are and what you're looking for and where we're going. All of those types of things, which is called reasonable leadership, okay? So some final thoughts. Before you try and change others, remember how hard it is to change yourself. Turn to the person next to you and say, he's talking about you. You better listen, okay? Just tell him about it. He's talking about you, all right? Before you try and change others, remember how hard it is to train yourself. Example is the school of mankind. He will learn at no other. Show the way. Don't preach, reach, screech the way. Show the way. He came from heaven to earth to what? Show the way. So, like that song says, okay? Show the way. Learn from others, the YWCA mistakes. The second mouse gets the cheese. We talked about that the other night. There's a lot of cheese out there, guys. And it's other people's cheese because they're in the mousetrap. So you're free. Okay, first be best, then be first. You got to aspire to inspire before you expire. I like that one. All right. Elisha's job was to be Elisha, not Elijah. We said that before. If you see a turtle on a fence, it's for sure he had help to get there. Are you with me? And I think sometimes, I could assume, Neville, wouldn't you say that? Here's the turtle on the fence, and I promise you, he had help to get here, didn't you? And so, in any event, I had help to get here, what I'm doing, lots of help. And so I value it. I just think it's kind of cool, and everybody kind of gets a win. I got all these people, these mentors, and they get so excited when they see me on the Facebook, and they say, I had something to do with that guy's life. Are you with me? So I'm getting partial credit from God. Hello? I'm making friends for myself in heaven so that when I come in, they'll greet me and say that, yeah, we heard that Delph guy, but you're the guy that was mentoring him. Hello? So the only one in the world who doesn't want to control you is the one who has every right to control you, but doesn't. A mentor's ministry. My job is to get people to do what they don't want to do in order to achieve something they've always wanted to achieve. You know who said that? Coach of the Dallas Cowboys, an American gridiron, Tom Landry. He says, that's my job as coach. My job is to get people to do something they don't want to do in order to achieve something they've always wanted to achieve. Interesting thought. So don't wait until the end of your life and write a book entitled, The Life I Meant to Live. Does that make sense? So guys, I think that's the last one. There's one more. The goal of mentoring, more people, more like Jesus. More people, more like Jesus. And I believe we want to be a church. You know, I was thinking about this little rhetoric here, this little slogan, geared to the times, anchored to the rock. Could we be a church like that? Geared to the times, anchored to the rock. All right? Lead not from the head, so you are over them. Lead not from the feet, so that you are under them. Lead from the heart, so that you are beside them. Sons, daughters, and friends, not slaves. Slaves don't know what's happening. Sons and daughters do. So that's how learners become leaders. The beginning. It's not the end. It's the what? Beginning. Do you have, I think that's my message for you tonight. Did you enjoy it? All right. It's just a different viewpoint. I want to move it from knowledge to revelation, okay? From the head to the heart. God's opened your eyes, your mind. Now He's opened your heart, your eyes, your heart. Now you're ready for it to go to your feet. All right? The head, the heart, the feet. There you go, Neville.
Let's give Ed a hand. Thank you, Ed. That was good. I want you to stay in front here. We've got 5 or 10 minutes left, so I'm going to give a chance for you to ask a question. All right, so not too deep stuff that we need 5 minutes for to answer, but maybe you've got a short question that you want to ask Ed, and this is your chance.
Don't ask me about pre-tribulation rapture, okay? Please don't.
All right, so anybody out there? Anyone that wants to ask him a question, something that's got to do with tonight's discussion, learners to leaders, how do I get there?
Do you think this is even possible? Yes. Doing that, all those things and so forth, that finding somebody, you think it's possible?
Yes, Gerard.
Well, interesting, and you know, it's kind of both ways with me. Sometimes they'll come to me, and I think I'd rather have that because it shows that they're engaged. All right. Sometimes, you know, I would go and try and find them, but then I got to make sure that they're as committed as I am. So I think it happened both ways. And I think that as you see people, I mean, any pastor can tell you this, as you see your people, you just go like, that guy's a good candidate. You know, that guy's, you know, he's firing on 8 cylinders. You know what I'm saying? And he's got the potential to do that, so we can develop that. So I think it can happen both ways. Frankly, I'd rather have the right type of people come to me. There's a lot of people who come up to you that aren't ready yet. I mean, they're enthusiastic, and that's great. I appreciate the enthusiasm. But it's like, let's just grow a little more in some other areas. So that's my answer to that, okay? Can either be either way.
Charles.
I couldn't help but
I think you just meet them and it turns in. I'd rather have it not be, like a, it's a little awkward to me to say, well, I'm going to mentor you, It's like I'd rather just, let's meet together and see what the future is and kind of build from there and stuff. I mean, you could tell them if you're interested in a mentor, mentoring, mentee-mentor relationship, Paul-Timothy relationship. I don't know if you are or aren't, but I'd sure like to be part of your life and helping you to be, step up into bigger, better, greater, So that's the way I'd probably say that. It is a little awkward to come up, I'm going to mentor you, and that's could be one way very easily, So I'd rather have it be kind of start off as a relationship and it just builds into that. You had like a coach, that you're going to have a coach. You get a coach if you're working out and all that. You get a coach to help you and so forth and all that. He's there then. So that's the good thing about them accessing you. But you could just say, hey, would you like to learn what I've learned? Would you someday would you like to be something like me, in that space or whatever? You could say it that way too. I had that with my brother in our business. I mean, he was the best, mentee ever, in that he was totally motivated. I started a business, and 3 years later, he came into that. And man, when we handed off that deal, it was like nothing, ever happened. And we just did that in life. Of course, he already knew me, being my brother and all that. So I was really thrilled, to see him kind of come along and just take that business. And, he added to what I established. I had 43 employees. At his biggest point, he had 75 employees. But then we got some government rules that put you in a different class of taxes and stuff if you had over 50 employees. So he promptly went down to 49 employees because he didn't want the government bothering him. All right, so with all of its rules and regulations and all that kind of stuff. So you can tell what kind of person my brother was, with that statement. So there's your answer, all right? Sorry to be, it can be either way, just the way you handle it, depending on the person.
I'd like to say something about what you asked, because it's very much the same that he asked. What Gerard asked is, who do I mentor? Where do I get these guys in a social scenery? And you asked that out of a business scene. So I think one needs to determine what your mission is. Just to add to that, in the kingdom, that's not social and that's not business either. But in the kingdom, there is a mandate to mentor. Yeah. So in the kingdom, in the church, groups should form, and there should be mentors. And I think it's something like we have in our men's ministry on Thursday night. There is a big group of 70 or whatever that approach, and so we've got the church. There's the big idea that we convey, and there's a smaller 70 environment, and there's groups of 7 or 6 where mentorship happens. So that's intentional, and it's because the word says do that. That's the kingdom. So that's a kingdom mandate. In our personal lives, I think there's a very personal relationship. It's a very personal relationship that should happen there if it's, an organic thing that should happen there. But back to business, I do think it depends on our mission. So if we are in the kind of business environment where we should raise a next generation, I believe mentorship should be part of a program. There's an intentionality that should be, it should be intentional. If we want to give over that business to a next generation. If the business is not set up like that, it's up to you. Because there's different businesses. There's different business models. There's business models that thrives on bringing in new lines of leadership. If you don't change leadership or raise leaders every 2 to 5 years, there's no future for that business. Different businesses, like in production, does not need a new generation of leadership every 5 years. It's a production line. So it all depends on what kind of business I think you refer to as well.
Yeah, if you create that expectation, like in your policy manual or something like that, that, listen, we want to take you to that, make it part of your culture, then it's not awkward to approach that. I'd say would that be fair?
Okay, another question.
Okay.
Good. Another
Thank
question. Anyone else? There's a gap with the rain. Ask quickly. All right. Okay. I think that's interesting questions for everybody. It's how do we engage into mentorship? And so thanks for asking that. So I really think there's three environments. There's the business thing that you just mentioned. So you can decide for yourself what is needed there and what is there a need maybe. And in church, I think it's a given that we mentor. So that's a given. We can't grow without that. And then there's the personal thing. It's environment with friends, guys that's in the same season that I'm in. And do I have, back to what Ed taught Saturday morning, do I have something to say? And do I have something to show or people to see? And do I have something to give?
Sure.
Is there something that I can... So that will always be part of that. Before you decide, I'm going to mentor people, Hebrews 13:7 says the same thing. Leaders has got a word worth listening to. All right, that's something to say. The leaders has got faith worth following. That's something to show. There's a testimony, and leaders has got a life worth imitating. That's really
something to share.
Something to share with people. So it should be in place. All right. Guys, thank you so much.
Neville, how would you implement, like here's all these people out here.
I was making plans all the time.
Yeah.
You ask me.
Yeah. I mean, what's the next step after this? That maybe if somebody wants to do.
Next that was in my mind all the time. So, why do you ask that? He could see I was not concentrating on his message. I was making plans here. So I was really making plans as we were sitting there. I got a few notes there. So we've got young leaders, if I may. Graham Liesel's husband, Graham Boertes, is one of our cell leaders, and there's really a group of leaders standing up there around that, around the individual that's been journeying with us for 10 years. So Graham has been around for 10 years. He's been mentored, he's been trained, he's been invested in, he's been imparted in, he's been empowered, he's been trusted with certain responsibilities, and he's part of our management board. So he's in decision making in 10 years. He just came through, and he's part of our decision making board in this church. He's helping us to take big decisions. And I think he's about the youngest guy around there, so we really celebrate that. I don't know if he's here tonight. Sorry, forgive me for using that as an example, but we need examples. And but the amazing thing is, Graham, so he's not here tonight, but there's a lot of leaders around here who is being mentored by him. So they're sitting here, all around, they're sitting here. So some of the guys that he raised up now, just from tomorrow morning, there will be a discussion around their names and their future, because 4 families came this morning, all out of the same age group with their kids, and they're asking for direction with the cell leader. So we're going to appoint one of Graham's leaders that he raised in the past year or so as new leaders of new groups. So there's mentoring happening. There's second and third generation already, just in that one individual story. In 10 years, there's a third generation guys being raised up there. And I was just thinking, what's next for us, regarding that specific situation? I think what's next for us as a church is having leaders that will spend a weekend with young people, or people generally, that will spend a weekend with them and invest in them. About 8 years ago, I took a week, and we invited a few guys, handpicked guys, invited them to the river, to a river house. We had a house at the river here up in somewhere. And we spent a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning before church. I actually finished the session Sunday morning, and I sped back to preach here. And we just invested a weekend in a few individuals, and these guys are still in leadership. I was just thinking about that again. It's maybe we need more of that, pockets of investment. Asking people to come specifically, invite them, and start to design their journeys. So that was the thoughts that I had, for next.
Okay.
Yeah. Just
You know,
initial thoughts.
I have a privilege of mentoring about 7 people all over the world. You know, I picked certain leaders. I'll be with one next week in Johannesburg and Benoni, Joshua Churchyard. And when we first met him, his church was, he's on Great North Road in Benoni there, whatever. And first met him, their church was, 150, 200, what I call a charismatic accident. And they were very charismatic and going nowhere. And, he read Church of Community, and it changed, his whole perspective. And they're sitting at 800 or 1,000 or whatever. They've had services like that, approximately the area of my size of my church. And but we do life together. And we just do life. And there's another guy from England, Bernard Saunders, is going to be there. And so us 3 are going to be together for 2 days just to be together. And Bernard Saunders is one of the most amazing people I've ever met out of England and Andover. And one of Terry Virgo's guys, kind of. And there's a guy in Singapore that we invest in Malaysian, Wilson Ng, who prints those smaller books back there. And 2 in America, another Shavian Briette, who you know. Shavy and I are very close in this type of relationship. So it's fun. I found it just adds spice to my life, and every time we meet, it just kind of, develops. And so this is us doing life together. It's what Christianity should be, right?
That's good.
Neville?
I like that. Let's close with prayer. Father, thank you. We praise you for a weekend of investment, of stimulation, of so much to think about, to plan around, to rethink, and to go and revisit and make sure that we pull these concepts into our lives, get practical with it, and see a generation change, and see the church grow, and see how we get our hands on the inheritance that's been promised, to see the souls coming in, and make space for them, and plan for the future, and not only look at ourselves and try to maintain and do maintenance, but to really believe in the future, lead our people there, and to get our hands on that inheritance. We praise you for that. We praise you for Dr. Ed, and we bless him for his next week and the rest of his travel, so that you will be with him, and looking forward to see him again. We praise you for the investment. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much. Yeah. So Ed will be there at the back at the desk. If you need some more books, he's got some more books there. He showed this morning. Yeah. So we're going to stay with this.
We still have some more of those too.
All right. So tomorrow morning, we're going to have a last session or 2. It will be 2 sessions from 9 to 12. So you're so welcome to join us. If you've got time on your hands, come and join us. But it will be specifically for teams. So if you want to come, this will be the invitation. It's for teams. So we've got 1 or 2 guys that's going to bring their teams, their functional teams here, and it is going to invest in that environment. So the initial thought was it would be the full-time ministry team at the church, but we just want to open it up. If you've got typical teams like that, work with people in that typical environment, not in ministry, secular, but you've got teams. This is guys that journey together in offices or serving the same mission, and you think they will benefit from that you're welcome, but you must let us know that you're bringing them, because we're going to try to be ready for that. There's handouts, there's printouts. There will be 2 sessions, 9 to 9:45. We'll have a tea break, and about 11:15 to 12. So you're welcome. Let one of the team members know. I think let Liesel know, Liesel Boertes, and she will be ready for that. All right. So you're welcome to join us for that. Thank you so much. There's going to be coffee outside, something to drink at the back there. Sorry, at the back there. And get your books there at the counter. It will be there, and he will sign your books. Thank you.
Thank you.